Hi there, everybody. We're now in the last of the systems. The reproductive system is going to be the final one for the semester. There are only 2 lectures, male physiology and female reproductive physiology, and that will finish off the course. Because there are just 2 lectures, and it would be awkward to have a reproductive test the day before the final, the questions for the reproductive system will be on the final exam. There'll be about a dozen questions on the final exam from these 2 lectures. So the first thing, when your fertilization first occurs, and we'll talk about this, it's hard to talk about one before the other because you know what, the chicken or the egg comes first, but we'll make this all make sense eventually. But once fertilization takes place, sexual differentiation begins. Initially, you're a female. Unless certain things happen, you come out, at least in outward appearance, as being a female. A couple of things need to happen. First, genetic sex reverts to whether you have 2 female chromosomes in your reproductive or your genetic chromosomes. XX is female, so you get one from each parent. So if you get an X from the mother and an X from the father, you're XX, you're a female. XY is the male. You'll get one X from the mother. The mother only has X's, so she can only give you an X. She'll give you one of her 2 X's, and the Y then has to come from the father. The father is XY, so there's a 50-50 chance he'll give you an X and you'll become a female, XX, or we'll give you the Y and you'll be an XY. So it's actually the guy who determines whether you have a boy or a girl child. And, Henry VIII had multiple wives beheaded because none of them would bear him sons. It was his fault. He should have beheaded himself because he's the one that was deciding that all his kids were turning out to be females. Gonadal sex is determined by hormones. This is simply determined by the genes that you get at fertilization. After that, though, you have to start producing the right hormones to become male or female, for the one set of gonads you have to either convert into ovaries, which is the default, or to convert into testes, which requires testosterone for that to happen. Then phenotypic sex is what you actually look like, whether you appear to be male or female, because you can be a genetic male who actually develops testes, but they never develop further than that because you don't have the right hormonal balance and stuff, and you wind up looking like a female anyway, and you don't even know that you're a male, perhaps. So genetic sex is just genetically determined. Gonadal is by hormones, and the phenotypic sex is hormonally driven also. So again, the Y chromosome is male determining. If you don't get that, you will not be a male. Even if you get testosterone and you wind up looking like a male, you won't be a functional male unless you have that Y chromosome, because it will allow the gonad to convert from being its default ovary into a testis. Male differentiation after the receiving of the Y chromosome is basically getting the right amounts of the male developing hormones. They're called androgens. That's a medical term that means male generator. So a male generator is an androgen. Testosterone is an androgen. If you don't have the Y chromosome, you can't develop a testis, even though you might have, say, a tumor that makes some testosterone, and you may wind up with some male characteristics, but you won't be a functional male. So in the male fetus at 6 to 7 weeks, the male starts producing testosterone which will cause those gonads to become testes. Okay, so if you have the Y chromosome and you start making the testosterone you need to convert to a male, that happens about 6 or 7, 8 or 9 weeks. Female differentiation and female production of female characteristics waits until about 9 weeks to happen. So this has time to happen. If you're going to be a guy, you start doing it then, and it overwhelms or turns off this part. If it doesn't hurry up and happen, then you start developing as a female. So, sexual differentiation doesn't require hormones initially, but you need testosterone to start developing as a male fetus. So at 6, 7, 8 weeks, you start making testosterone. If you don't develop that, you'll become a phenotypical female. You'll look like a female, but you still can't make sperm if you don't have testes. And so you might think you're a female, but surprise, surprise, it turns out that you're a genetic male that looks like a female. Now, the original embryo has what are called primordial gonads. You only have, everybody winds up with the same 2 to start with. They will develop as ovaries by default unless they get the right amounts of testosterone and stuff to develop into testes. But along with these primordial gonads comes both set of tubes. You have the male tubes, which will become the vas deferens and other duct work. You also have what are called Mullerian ducts, which will become fallopian tubes, the uterus, and the upper third of the vagina. This is the female tubing that will develop into all of the internal female reproductive apparatus. And you start out with both of them. The right hormones will allow these to develop and these to go away, or these to develop and these to go away. So you're going to need the right hormones to make both of those things happen. The male the male tubes are called Wolffian ducts. Wolfman sounds like a male anyway. So the Wolffian ducts are the male ducts. The female ducts are the Mullerian ducts that will become the fallopian tubes and uterus and stuff. Leydig cells start producing testosterone in the male if you're going to be a male, and the testosterone will maintain and develop the Wolffian ducts. You have another set of cells in the testes called Sertoli cells, and they will produce, in addition to helping you later to make either sperm or eggs, they will, at this point, produce something called anti-Mullerian hormone or anti-Mullerian substance, and it'll make the female stuff go away. So if you have baby testes in there, you will start making testosterone to develop the male stuff. You'll also make anti-Mullerian hormone to make the female stuff go away. They're both secreted by the testes if this embryo wants to become a male. So here we have our primordial gonads, and you've got 2 sets of ducts. Here's the Wolffian ones. They're actually attached to the primordial gonad. So if this becomes a testis, the vas deferens is attached to it. The Mullerian ducts are not attached to it and never will become attached to it. So if you develop as a female, you have these fallopian tubes that are close to, but not attached to, the ovary. So here, if I start making testosterone, because I have the Y factor, I will maintain the Wolffian ducts attached to the testes. These guys will form as testes, and then these guys will develop. And I'll also make anti-Mullerian hormone to make the female tubes go away. You need both things to happen. If I'm a female, I won't make testosterone and I won't make anti-Mullerian hormone because those come from testes. So the male stuff would just disappear without the presence of testosterone, and the female fallopian tube stuff will stay there because you don't have anti-Mullerian hormone to make it go away. So female, no testosterone, no anti-Mullerian hormone, so the male stuff goes away, the female stuff stays. Male, you make both testosterone and anti-Mullerian hormone. So this is kind of an important part about differentiation, and it's likely to be tested. And so here you're starting, you're undifferentiated. You've got your primordial testes, and you've got the male and the female ducts both there. A normal male will make testosterone to keep the male stuff and anti-Mullerian hormone to get rid of the female. Normal female will not make testosterone, and therefore the male stuff disappears, not make anti-Mullerian hormone, the female stuff stays. Now, if you have a castrated embryo male, if you do it in a lab on a rat or something, or if by some, accident of nature, you don't have testes, and even though you're a male, if you have a Y but you don't make the testes, then you'll wind up apparently a female. You'll have these primordial gonads won't develop into testes, and the female stuff stays there because you're not making anti-Mullerian hormone. These, they're a castrated male, so you don't have the testes to make the female stuff go away. So if this happened to you and these did not function as testes, you can't be a functional female, if you're a male. So if these are either not there at all or are unfunctional, then you'll have your fallopian tubes and stuff, and you think you're a female, but you never really develop as a functional female, and you're surprised to find out, that it doesn't work that way. If you have a female and you treat that female with testosterone, you'll wind up with both sets of tubes, right? Because the testosterone will keep these guys, but you're not making anti-Mullerian hormones, so you keep these guys. So if you have a tumor that makes you produce testosterone, you'll keep the male tubes. You might develop some male characteristics. Maybe you won't even be quite sure what you are when you're born, but you actually could be a reproductive female because you have the female stuff, and you have ovaries. Just think, testosterone maintains these, anti-Mullerian hormone gets rid of these, so whatever happens is going to happen. Another interesting thing about this is that it's unilateral. It's hard to understand why it only happens on the side that it happens. If this testis were absent in a male, you're a genetic male, you make one testis that works right, and it keeps your male tube. It produces anti-Mullerian hormones, so you get rid of the female tube. As a baby, only one testicle drops into the scrotum. And you can be a reproductively active male if you've got one thing that works. But because there's none over here, you'll actually have a fallopian tube on the other side. Surprise, surprise. And this is another interesting case, and it's not terribly uncommon. And this is where you have what's called androgen insensitivity syndrome. You're a male, okay? So these are testes. They're making testosterone, but you don't have the right receptors to respond to it, so you don't develop as a male. Your male tubes go away. These don't drop down into the scrotum. You don't develop a scrotum. You can't respond to your own testosterone. But you are making anti-Müllerian hormones, so the female stuff goes away too. So here you have, you don't have male stuff. You don't even think you're a guy because you haven't responded to any of the signals from testosterone. You think you're a female because, you've got, externally, you look like a female. Remember, the Müllerian ducts are your fallopian tubes, your uterus, and the upper third of your vagina. So you develop the lower 2/3 of the vagina. It's called blind vagina. And you grow up as a little girl thinking you're a little girl, and then you never menstruate, and if they ever, do a sonogram or something, they find out you don't have a uterus, and you don't have fallopian tubes, and you're an androgen-resistant male. It's actually considered possible or likely that some of the most tall, kind of amazingly non-traditional looking supermodels are androgen-resistant males. They might be 6'2" or 6'3" or something like that, long and willowy and strong and look every bit like a female, but they're actually androgen-resistant males. So remember this. What would happen if you have androgen resistance? What would happen if you made normal amounts of testosterone but didn't make anti-Müllerian hormone? Well, then you'd look like this, You'd keep your male stuff, but you also wouldn't get rid of the female stuff. Just kind of walk your way through that. It's kind of like blood typing a little bit. What if I had X, Y, or Z happen? So female is default. If you don't make Y, you'll develop the Müllerian ducts, the external female genitalia, everything will work right. You'll develop the ovary instead of the testis. The Wolffian ducts will disappear because it's not being supported by testosterone. Now here's the male reproductive apparatus. You have the shaft of the penis, which goes all the way back to here. It's attached in here to the pubis. Okay, here's the shaft of the penis. The head is called the glans, G-L-A-N-S, the glans penis. The skin covering, called the foreskin, is also called the prepuce. The prepuce is the scientific term, so this is the one you'll want to use. The prepuce is a foreskin that protects the head of the penis when it's flaccid. During erection, the foreskin pulls back and reveals the head of the penis. The glans is very sensitive erectile tissue. Most males these days are circumcised, which takes the the prepuce off and leaving the glans exposed all the time. Partly it's a religious thing and partly for cleanliness, because it's hard to keep this area in here clean on an uncircumcised penis. The erectile tissue on the upper surface of the penis is called the ductus cavernosum, or corpus cavernosum. It's actually corpus cavernosum, and it fills up with blood during erections. You have the urethra coming through here to the external urethral orifice, or the urinary meatus, the opening. The rest of the penis that surrounds that is called the corpus spongiosum. Spongiosum is down here, the cavernosum is on top. Back here you have the prostatic urethra coming from the bladder through the prostate gland. Here you have the vas deferens, or ductus deferens, which comes all the way over around the bladder, meets up with the seminal vesicle. The seminal vesicle, which adds some more fluid into the semen. And then at that point it becomes the ejaculatory duct. So at this point, during ejaculation, the sperm comes up through here, you add semen to it, it joins the urethra in the middle of the prostate gland, and then comes out through the urinary meatus. There are valves here so that only one can happen at a time. You can't pee while you're ejaculating, and you can't ejaculate while you're peeing. It turns this on or turns this off. The scrotum is the sac where the testis resides, testicle or testis. Remember, the testis starts out as a primordial gonad right up here where the ovary would be if it doesn't move. If you develop as a male embryo, that testicle will drop down through a hole in your muscle wall down here called the inguinal canal, which is a place that for the rest of male's life is a likely spot of an inguinal hernia. It drops down through that little hole before it becomes too big to fit through there, drops down into the scrotum, and then spends the rest of its life there. The scrotum is designed to keep the testicle at the right temperature. So if you're too hot, you drop it down. If you're too cold, you pull it up close to the body for warmth. Inside the testis or testicle, you have the seminiferous tubules that make sperm. They store that sperm in the epididymis, remember on the outside of epididymis, which is attached to the vas deferens. So the sperm is made in the seminiferous tubules, stored in the epididymis, and moves through the vas deferens to the ejaculatory duct and urethra. The height of the testis, and therefore its temperature, is controlled by this interesting muscle called the cremaster muscle, which originates all the way up here and wraps like a net, like a basket, around the testicle, and can pull it way up or drop it way down depending on how hot or cold you need it to be. Here we have an even more close-up. We have three kinds of cells inside the testicle. The germinal cells are the actual sperm cells. They start out as precursors and become sperm through several stages of development. And then you have two sets of cells around those sperm cells. Sertoli cells produce and support sperm production. And Leydig cells make testosterone. The Leydig cells are your androgen-producing cells. Your Sertoli cells are the sperm. Sperm, Sertoli, S, the Sertoli cells. Sertoli cells also will make anti-Müllerian hormone. So while these guys are making testosterone, these guys are getting rid of the female ductwork by making anti-Müllerian hormone. Here we have Sertoli cells surrounding the apparatus where you take your basic sperm stem type cells and make them more and more developed until they become spermatids, which are the ones that are still stuck to the tissue here, haven't been released into the tube yet. Sertoli cells support the production of sperm. Remember, Leydig cells make testosterone. They're on the outside of this mess here. They're going to make your androgens. So let's look a little bit more closely at these. Leydig cells make androgens. They make testosterone and dihydrotestosterone. They are stimulated by luteinizing hormone, one of your gonadotropins that comes from the pituitary. Remember, you have two of them. You have luteinizing hormone and follicle-stimulating hormone. Luteinizing hormone makes Leydig cells, luteinizing hormone stimulates Leydig cells to make your androgens, testosterone and dihydro. Follicle-stimulating hormone makes FSH, follicle-stimulating hormone, stimulates Sertoli cells, S, to make sperm, SSSLL. Okay? Luteinizing hormone, Leydig cells, makes testosterone. Follicle stimulating hormone is FSH, stimulates Sertoli cells to make sperm. Now we will see, and we'll talk about this in the gestation stuff in the next lecture, the female reproductive stuff. When you implant a fetus, an embryo, implant the egg ball in the wall of the mother's uterus, there's not enough luteinizing hormone available to make that into a male if it needs to be a male. The moment that you implant the cell ball into the wall of the uterus, that cell ball starts producing the placenta. The placenta comes from the baby, not from the mother. The placenta is a large vascular structure full of hormone-producing abilities and stuff to help support the baby, and it is connected to the woman's endometrial layer so that blood can, or nutrients, not blood. The blood doesn't share. They're separate. The mother's blood system is separate from the baby's, but they're so close together that nutrients and oxygen can go back and forth between that endometrium and the placenta, which is supporting the baby. Now the placenta, layer of the placenta that largely makes hormones is called the chorion. The chorion is that part of the placenta. So because you need luteinizing hormone to stimulate Leydig cells to make testosterone so you can become a male, your placenta starts making fake luteinizing hormone. It's called human chorionic gonadotropin. Remember, LH is a gonadotropin, and this is coming from the chorion. So human chorionic gonadotropin starts being released, and it helps produce enough testosterone for the male to become a male. Meanwhile, HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin, is a great test for pregnancy. Because if you haven't implanted, you won't make this stuff. And once you start making HCG, you know that you've been implanted your fetus into the wall of the uterus. And that's the primary test for pregnancy. HCG. So here we have Sertoli cells are all around in here. They're supporting the production of these cells to become spermatids. These are still spermatids until they get released, and then they're called sperm once they're freely swimming. The Leydig cells out here are making testosterone and dihydrotestosterone. Most of your testis is seminiferous tubules. You make a lot of sperm. Okay? Stimulation by LH, Leydig cells. The FSH is stimulating the migration from being a spermatogonia, spermatocyte, spermatid, and then released as sperm into the lumen. You don't need to know those steps. Just know the Sertoli cells are stimulating and supporting this process of becoming sperm. It takes about 74 days. Males make sperm their whole lives. It decreases a little with age, but there are guys in their 80s and 90s that father kids. Whether it's a good idea or not, it happens. But it takes about 74 days for sperm to mature, and you're constantly making sperm. The human sexual cycle, or the delivery of the semen into the female, is broken down into a few phases. The arousal phase, or excitement phase, is parasympathetic. This is the parasympathetic nervous system causes erections. Remember, sympathetic is fight or flight. An erection wouldn't help you run away from a lion. Okay? So parasympathetic is excitement, arousal, and it can be tactile, it can be from touch, or a lot of it is cephalic or in your head. So if you think about having sex, if you read a sexy story or something like that, it can cause the arousal, cause an erection to happen. Once you've reached that erectile phase, then a plateau phase occurs. That is whatever long it takes then before the orgasm actually happens. The orgasmic phase is both sympathetic and somatic. Sympathetic causes the release of the fluid out of the testicle and out of the vas deferens, and then the somatic phase with striated skeletal muscle causes the actual pumping action that pumps the sperm out. The resolution phase is a phase after the ejaculation has occurred, before another erection can happen. Anywhere from a few minutes to a couple of hours. This is actually a safety valve for the female. In many mammals, intercourse is potentially a lethal exercise. Elephants, rhinoceroses, and of course in some case humans, it can be a bad deal. And it's really nice if the girl can run away before the guy gets all excited again. So the resolution phase is, designed to do that. So lady, if the guys roll over and fall asleep, it's not his fault. Actually it is, but he's got an excuse if he knows how to make use of it. Arousal, the cephalic phase, parasympathetic through the pudendal nerve. Pudendal nerve coming off the sacral plexus, way low in the spine, pudendal nerve. For males and females, the pudendal nerve will cause the erectile tissue to be stimulated. Vasodilation, blood flow into the corpus cavernosum, causing the erection. The emission phase, that's what it's called when you release the semen into the ductal system. That's sympathetic. Ejaculation, somatic. Remember, parasympathetic is the erection. Sympathetic, somatic is the ejaculation process. Now, after the sperm gets into the female vagina, the sperm has been pretty well prevented from swimming around while it's in the male system by a rather thick semen. It has to be what's called capacitated before it can start swimming freely and try to make its way all the way up to the egg. So capacitation is necessary. If you do this in a test tube, if you're a test tube baby, you have to thin the solution down by adding saline and stuff to capacitate so that it can start swimming. The female vaginal secretions provide this capacitation in nature, and so it capacitates the sperm so it can start swimming upstream. The flagellar motility, the little whip-like tail that allows the sperm to swim, also turns on the enzyme that is going to allow that sperm to eat through the eggshell once it finally reaches the egg. Normal sperm count, it was always considered to be about 100 million sperm per milliliter. That's a lot. Nowadays it seems to be about 60 or 70 million per milliliter. Apparently it's plenty. People haven't stopped having kids. It seems like it's probably dropped because of our change in diet that has a lot of beef and things, and even other products are sometimes treated with female hormones. There may be some other reasons for that, but it's so somewhere around 60 or 70. If you get way below that, much below that, you can be infertile. Now, it seems like like 20 million sperm would be enough, but it's not. Very few are strong enough to actually swim all the way to the egg. Most of them drop out. And once you get there, you need a lot to produce enough of the enzyme to break through the shell. You have a lot of sperm working at it, and finally, one will get through, fertilize the egg, and then you turn off the process so that no further sperm can come in. So it's a pretty dramatic process, but you need to start off with a lot to have enough sperm get there to do the job. 20 million infertility. Remember 20% on the renal, filtration and that kind of stuff. 20 is a good number. 20 million sperm and below, infertility is almost certain. Okay, let's look at testosterone. We make testosterone. First of all, it's going to, protect the Wolffian ducts and create the male fetus, produced by the Leydig cells in response to LH. Okay, but it does a lot of things in the development of the male throughout their whole life, especially through puberty. So testosterone, it's made by the Leydig cells, and then you can convert some of it into dihydrotestosterone, which is a slightly different version that has a different job to do. Testosterone can also be converted into estrogen. So females make testosterone, they convert almost all of it to estrogen, but females still have some testosterone. Males make testosterone and convert some of it into dihydro, but they convert some of it into estrogen. So males have some estrogen, females have some testosterone. It's all interrelated. It's lipid-based. It's a steroid. So it has to be transported bound to a plasma protein. The most common name for it is androgen binding globulin. Remember, we had thyroid binding globulin, androgen binding globulin. This is single strand DNA binding protein. That's another scientific name for it. Because remember, you get one strand of DNA from the father, one strand from the mother. So single strand binding protein binds the testosterone, which is, so anyway, whatever. But androgen binding globulin is a good name for it too. Both testosterone and dihydrotestosterone bind to inside the cell. Once they are released from their transport protein, they move across the membrane easily because they're lipid-based, and they go to work inside the cell. They can bind to receptors inside the cytosol, or more commonly, they go into the nucleus and bind to the DNA, like lipid-based stuff tends to do, and cause protein synthesis. So, from my point of view, these lipid-bound steroid-type hormones go easily into the cell, easily into the nucleus, and work on protein synthesis. If you take a lot of testosterone, your muscles get big. Protein synthesis. Testosterone, muscle growth, making of extra red blood cells. Remember, males have more red blood cells than females. Changes in the larynx and your bone growth. You get bigger, heavier bones and lower voice. Dihydrotestosterone is more important for the development of the external genitalia. So taking testosterone doesn't make you the guy hung like a horse. It is more likely to give him heart failure and cause a variety of other problems. The other problem with taking extra testosterone is it's the negative feedback that causes you to make less luteinizing and FSH type gonadotropins. So if you're taking a shot of testosterone, you make less of your own gonadotropins and you understimulate your testes. And so you can actually have testicular atrophy if you're taking testosterone shots. DHT is the one that is more important for producing the male reproductive stuff. And here they go inside the cell. They're binding to receptors in the cytosol, or they're going inside the nucleus and binding on the DNA strand. So it can be genomic or non-genomic, but inside the nucleus is what I'm most interested in. Testosterone, differentiation as a fetus. You gotta have that or you don't become a male. Differentiation and development of the external genitalia, especially after it's converted to dihydrotestosterone. Maturation of the internal reproductive maintenance, function of the accessory sex glands like the seminal vesicle and prostate gland and stuff, building of muscle mass. Here we have a list of all the things that it does. It obviously makes you turn into a Greek god. All of us, see, look at me, Greek god. Now that means that you make a beard. All of these things changes. It increases the amount of LDLs and decreases your HDLs. Bummer. That's why males, at least before female menopause, males tend to have higher bad cholesterol and lower good cholesterol than females, somewhat. Regulation. Leydig cells are stimulated by luteinizing hormone to make testosterone. The negative T feedback is testosterone. It acts on the hypothalamus and pituitary, so you stop making so much LH. So it's our typical negative feedback. I'm making testosterone, so testosterone is the negative feedbacker. FSH, though, is a little different because the FSH is primarily causing your Sertoli cells to make sperm. Well, sperm doesn't go into the bloodstream and go back and turn off the pituitary. So Sertoli cells make inhibins. It's another hormone that they make to tell your pituitary when you've made enough FSH. So inhibins, you don't have your final product, which is testosterone here, feeding back. Instead, you make your own inhibitor. You can also make some activins if you don't have enough. But I'm more interested in the negative feedback mechanism. So for FSH, you make inhibins, and that turns off the production of more FSH. Here you go. Anterior pituitary make LH, Leydig cells make androgens, and they feed back, mostly testosterone. Here FSH makes the Sertoli cells make sperm and stuff, but you make inhibins to negatively feed back the pituitary. Testosterone does decline with age. It's not an abrupt thing like it is. Menopause in females usually happens over the course of a couple of years in the early 50s, where you stop making estrogens at all from the ovaries. With males, it's a more gradual thing, but males will have, some hot flashes. Males will have decreases in testosterone. Usually it's not enough to make them infertile. Like I say, older guys sometimes father kids. But over time, especially in your 80s and 90s, muscle mass decreases, facial hair becomes really thin, libido, appetite, you're less likely to want to have sex, you're less likely to be hungry, to develop the muscles. Your hematocrit decreases down closer to what the female hematocrit is. In this case, they're saying, interestingly, testosterone drops, but luteinizing hormone doesn't go up. If you're younger, anytime testosterone goes down, you make more luteinizing hormone and it brings it back up again. So it may not actually be a testicular thing. It may be that your pituitary is running out of the ability to make LH, and that's why testosterone, or at least a contributor toward the drop in testosterone. Testes in the third trimester, tendes descend into the scrotum. The testes, because they have been developing in the presence of testosterone. Androgen anti-Mullerian hormone is required to get rid of the female tubes and stuff, so the testes can descend down into the scrotum. Some babies are born with the testes still up in the abdomen. Sometimes you can just push on the abdomen and they'll pop through the inguinal canals. Other times it requires surgery to move them down into the scrotum. During early fetal life, you make a whole lot of testosterone because you got to turn into a male. At puberty, you make a whole lot more because you want to mature then. So after you're born, LH and FSH go up, and then they level off when you become an adult. And you can see that testosterone stays really low for a while, and then it suddenly around age 13, 14, 15 starts going up rather dramatically. It doubles and triples in a very short time. And there's no big surge here, so it must be you reach a critical mass around in here that is enough to cause this extra production of testosterone. Testosterone is produced cyclically, especially at puberty. It goes way up at night. It spikes at night, causes males at puberty ages to have wet dreams. Here's a look at how the cycle goes. You have right after fertilization, you have this big burst of testosterone, which helps you develop into the male in the first place. Right around childbirth, you'll see we have a kind of a burst of some female type hormones as in the female too, but you have this burst of testosterone when you're first born, and daddy looks at his little junior and says, wow, junior's going to be hung like a horse. Goes away after a while, and it's slightly dampened. His enthusiasm may be dampened by the fact that the surge in female hormones may cause Junior to start leaking milk out of his breast too, and so Dad may be confused by that. Then it stays quite low until puberty, and then it goes up, and it stays up all the way till, in your 70s, it starts to taper off, and by the time you get to be 90 years old, it's come down to maybe half what it was at your peak. And that's the male reproductive part and differentiation. The last lecture will be coming up, and that will be female reproduction. That would be next week.